Good morning from Unity of New Orleans Spiritual Center at 3722 St. Charles Avenue, wishing you a wonderful day. The great teacher and writer Joseph Campbell once said, "You must give up the life you planned to get the life that is waiting for you." I think this is a wonderful goal to adopt during these COVID-19 times. We're getting into the habit of a different way of life, so why not go the whole 9 yards? There we were, going our merry ways with the status quo, and boom, Corona strikes. Like Hurricane Katrina, it was a twist of fate that changed our lives. But built into any catastrophe is the potential to wake us up, to get us out of patterns, to transform ourselves, to adopt a whole new life, a whole new way of thinking and being. I have noticed our quarantine doing just that in a couple of ways. For example, Unity often talks about the oneness of all life, the interconnectedness of all things. Well, I've noticed in the last weeks that when I take a walk, everyone says hello, not just on my block, but from miles around. People on their porches, riding bikes, or walking, they all say hello and wave. They genuinely seem to want to connect, which is the normal way of being. We are all one on the most basic level, but in our ordinary, sometimes frenetic state, we're just too busy to think about it. We live like we're all separate beings, and this is abnormal. Usually it's things like Lent and rituals that provide us with a little jolt out of our routine. But let us not miss our present opportunity. The coronavirus has forced us to realize, as nothing else could have, that we truly are all one on this planet. The more we care for others, like being polite and wearing a mask when we're out, the more we are actually caring for ourselves and our loved ones because we aren't contributing to the spread of this virus. We've seen the same thing with pollution. With so few factories belching smoke and cars emitting fumes, cities are beginning to see clouds when they look up for the first time in ages. Cities in China are seeing mountains in the distance. The cessation of traffic has meant the cessation of smog, and it's presented the possibility of a better environment. There is always a silver lining if we'll just stay awake to it. Another silver lining for many is extra time for self-observation, meditation, and prayer, all of which aid in our transformation. These tools help us become who we really are under the layers of defenses, societal conditioning, and old habits. Bottom line, it's a time to give up the life we planned and accept the miraculous life that is waiting for us. Time out for genuine self-observation can help us get through the outer crust of our false personality, our ego-dominated earthly self, feelings of unworthiness, and we can access then the true divinity that is within us all. Katrina Zek talked last week about the Buddha within. She told us the story of the big clay Buddha in the monastery in Thailand. Remember, the statue had originally been made of solid gold, but the gold had been covered in clay when the conquering soldiers invaded their country, so the statue wouldn't be stolen and the gold melted down. After several hundred years, though, the story was forgotten and the monks didn't know what was beneath the clay. It wasn't until they tried to move the statue that the clay cracked and they discovered what was really underneath, a beautiful, solid gold Buddha. This is the perfect story to exemplify the golden divinity that is within us all, often underneath our clay exterior of flaws and earthly stuff. We are all pure gold underneath our pettiness, ego quirks, fears, and selfishness. Often that stuff is only there as a defense that we no longer need as adults. Our divinity is just a thin layer of clay away. Realizing this divinity within and our oneness with Source and everything in the universe is huge in terms of our transformation. We forget who we really are. We forget that this so called earthly plane has often programmed us to think that the physical plane and our physical bodies that we identify with are just a part of the whole. The mass psychosis that constantly bombards us to think that way starts seeming true, just as the monks started thinking that their Buddha was just clay. We think there is just a physical world where everything is separate and disconnected. When we spend more time in meditation and prayer, truth takes form in us. We feel it. We know it. Our minds stop and truth comes to the surface. It becomes apparent and accessible once more. We are able to get in touch with our essence, that golden Buddha within, that inner Christ that our outer clay has hidden. And we can think about it. Many of us have applied that outer clay for the same reason the Buddhist monks did. They were afraid the enemy would damage their true essence. They feared the soldiers would melt it down for the gold value. In our case, we often hide who we really are as children to survive, and we never find it again. It's kind of like that chapter in The Little Prince where he kept drawing boa constrictors, and the grown-ups kept saying it was a hat. So he finally just gave up his wondrous career as an artist and became a pilot. We put those layers of mud over our golden Buddha, our real essence, and with time, as with the golden Buddha in the monastery, we forget who we really are, as the monks lost the knowledge of what was really under that clay Buddha. When we talked at Easter about dying to our old selves, crucifying our ego-run, totally material-based self, that's what was meant. Chipping away that clay substance that surrounds our golden inner self, chipping away at our old ways of thinking about ourselves and others and the world. There's a Buddhist sutra which says, "Thought manifests as word. Word manifests as deed. Our deeds develop into habits, and our habits harden into character." Yes, changing our thoughts changes our lives and transforms us, creating a new being. These are times to get out of the old thought patterns. Half the job is done for us because we've already been forced to change our lives in significant ways. Just like the cessation of traffic has ridden the world of smog these days, many of us have some cessation of busyness that can give us the chance to clear up some thought pollution through extra reflection, meditation, and prayer. One of the outcomes of this inner reflection in terms of transforming our lives might well be to realize why we are the way we are and why others are the way they are. Just understanding ourselves and others can lead to a great deal of compassion and forgiveness, two of the hallmarks of a transformed person and a transformed life. It's not what people are like, but how we think of them that determines who they are to us and who we are too. The former assistant dean of the business school at Colorado University, Dr. Morris Massey, wrote a book entitled, "What You Are is Where You Were When." His thesis was that our thought patterns and prejudices are formed when we are very young and are based primarily on where and when we were raised, and that we carry those prejudices and thought patterns with us the rest of our lives. His thesis was that to work together successfully later in life, we must understand how we and others think. And that, he said, is determined by when and where we were primarily programmed. For example, imagine a man who grew up in the 60s in Berkeley, California. He finds himself on a work team with a woman who was raised in South Carolina in the 50s. They are likely not to agree on the same approach to dealing with company problems. They won't even agree on how to disagree. The 60s California guy with long hair and Birkenstocks will be idealistic and very upfront about his ideas, whereas the junior league Southern lady from Charleston will so nicely tell the Californian he's wrong that he won't even realize that his idea was criticized, so he'll proceed with his agenda, thinking there is no problem. My point is that we often don't speak the same language, and there are no subtitles in life. This often leads to prejudice and judgment. If we want to truly operate as one with others, we must be more aware of how we are affecting them and why they are bothering us. We aren't really that different when we look deeper. The Taoists say that two opposite ends of the rope are still one rope. Whether those opposite ends are Americans and Russians, or Republicans and Democrats, fundamentalist Christians and Unity students, or California hippies and Charleston conservatives, it's likely that we believe in basically the same thing, helping to make a better world. Our approaches and methods may differ depending on our programming, but our goals aren't that different. Realizing this oneness is huge when transforming from separatist views to unity. This transformation involves healing ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally, and it takes some understanding of ourselves and others and the world. Modern medicine is great at curing manifestations of dis-ease in the body, but when we cure the cause of the dis-ease and not just the symptom, we are truly healed. We can lower the fever with aspirin or yarrow tea, but we can't get rid of the infection that way, the source of the fever. You've all heard of the alcoholic who quits drinking but then becomes a chain smoker or coffee addict. Real healing comes about when we cure the cause of the disease, dis-ease. To transform usually necessitates healing ourselves emotionally, mentally, and physically. The Buddhist Four Noble Truths tell us that life is suffering, and that the cause of that suffering is our thinking, and that the end of that suffering is to change our thinking, the way we view ourselves, others, and life. Part of that process is to truly understand others and ourselves. Why are they and we the way we are? When we understand that, we can forgive much more easily and even have compassion. A little extra meditation and reflection do wonders with this. And don't forget to ask God to help you see things differently. It's just too hard to do it all alone. So what does true transformation, this new world we want to create, what does it look like? What does it mean to crucify our old self and resurrect? Well, for one, we start manifesting the kingdom of heaven here on earth in our lives. We've been talking about it since Palm Sunday, letting our former self be crucified, so to speak. Lest you think we've been talking in glittering generalities here, let's look closer. Ouspensky, a student of the great Sufi Gurdjieff, said that humans are incomplete beings. Nature gets us to a certain point, and after 20 years or so, we reproduce, and then most of us really don't develop much further. We have fulfilled nature's biological function. We then raise our own young to do the same thing, usually going on automatic till our physical bodies run their course. But those who choose to work on themselves can go beyond just our inherited instinctive responses to life. In terms of today's metaphor of the golden Buddha with the clay exterior, we start chiseling off all the clay and access our potential, our golden Buddha within. Most people either don't know about the gold Buddha underneath the clay, or they think it's too much trouble to chisel it maybe, Or they get started, but they get sidetracked. They forget that they don't have to run around in search of gold their whole lives, because all the gold they've ever needed to enjoy a miraculous life is within. But some of us, I believe a critical mass at this point, are interested in being more than just our biological instincts and mechanical cells. We are awakening from our hypnotized, programmed state. We have walked out of Plato's cave. We no longer are able to participate in the mass psychosis. We see more than just the physical world. We wipe our glass doors of perception and we see reality. At first, we just see shiny spots where the clay has cracked on the golden Buddha. Then, as we chisel more and more of our false personalities away, our true essence dazzles in the sun. What has happened then is a step forward in human evolution. What started 600,000 years ago as a little Homo erectus who had just arrived in Europe from Africa and then eventually mutated into a new form of being, a Homo sapien, with a much larger brain, with a powerful frontal cortex capable of advanced thinking. It then evolved into the prototype of a new being capable of accessing the omniscience of life, the oneness and connectivity of all life, the collective consciousness, the ability to transform our very cells. Now, I wouldn't want to diagram the last two sentences, but I sure want to live them. We are on the brink of becoming these new beings, these little sparks of the divine. We can be multidimensional and not just two-dimensional. We become aware that our world is three-dimensional and we quit just crawling around in a flat land. We change our thinking and we change our world. When we do, we enlarge our vision of what the world is and who we are. The world is multidimensional, and we are like a new species of being able to live on all these dimensions, not just one, not just in the physical world dominated by intellects and facts. We are no longer just a computer programmed to react in prescribed ways depending on the programs and data that others have put into us. We can operate in this old world probably better than most, but we are not of that world. Maybe we were formerly like the king who lived in the basement of his castle, unaware of his kingdom above. But we suddenly become aware that we can plug into the very source of the world and be one with the omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence, this all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present God. And in so doing, we are born as a new species. This is true transformation, and it is possible. Sages like Plato, Jesus, and Buddha have been doing it and encouraging us to forever. These things that I do, ye shall do also, and greater, Jesus said. It just takes right understanding and then right aim, a commitment. All the tools and wisdom are available to us. And the rewards are freedom, joy, peace, and abundance of all kinds. It is our job to clean our windows of perception, to crack the clay off the golden Buddha, to start realizing that everything is connected to everything else and that we are a part of this. This is God. Infinite answers, wisdom, and guidance are available to us through our oneness with Source, God. We just have to open up to it. We already are this new species. This world always has been multidimensional. We just haven't been aware of it. We can convert everything we encounter into the good that is the world. Everything is already good and in divine order. And then what? You transform yourself into a new being. You realize who and what you really are and what the world really is. And then what? Well, you may appear to be the same person to others, but you won't be. you will have finally joined with this higher mind force or God. You will notice little changes in your words and actions. Maybe you won't kill the lizard in your house. You'll take it outside instead and let it enjoy a full life. Maybe you won't pollute the forest or river on your camping trip. Maybe you won't judge your neighbor for being different from you because you understand that she was programmed at a different place and at a different time. Maybe you'll foster one of God's creatures, a homeless dog or cat. Maybe you'll smile at that homeless person you gave $1 to. Maybe you'll call your elderly aunt. Maybe you'll work on your integrity, your honesty, your tendency to be controlling or self-centered. Maybe you'll ask others how they are and then not interrupt them 4 times when they try to answer. In other words, you'll care about others and this planet of ours, all parts of God. Maybe you'll realize that others have reasons for being negative, abrasive, judgmental, or narcissistic. Maybe you'll choose to avoid disagreeable people, but if you at least understand why they're that way, you'll find compassion and forgiveness in your heart. In so doing, you'll save yourself a lot of unnecessary suffering. You'll understand their innocence, their golden Buddha within, and this will help you see your own golden source, the kingdom of heaven that is within you. The great poet Rumi said, "I look in temples, churches, and mosques, but I find the divine within my heart." And this is what transformation looks like. We start noticing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. We realize that when our words and actions or those of others don't match that divine level, we need only watch and realize that human experiences have influenced us or them, and then recalibrate back to our real selves. Then we start noticing that we are kinder, gentler, more patient, more helpful, more interested in others. We are more honest, sincere, and even vulnerable at times. We see no point in being opinionated, self-important, self-righteous, or right, because we realize our innate unity with others, which is much more important to us than being right. Transformation means we are freed from our muddled delusions, our state of inner slavery, and our mechanical tendencies that we've inherited. We are capable of peace and happiness that are not dependent on outer circumstances. We manifest the new order of being that we are in the next step of our evolution. And every time we encounter a crisis like Corona-19 or Hurricane Katrina or depression or war or a personal crisis, we just see it as a chance to jolt ourselves out of old patterns and into the remembrance that we are all one, that all is in divine order, and that we are all divine. As Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore said, "The I am is the same in all men and women. It is without limit in its capacity to express its potentialities of God." The Bible says, "Ye are gods." Unity teacher and Reverend Robert Brummett calls this birthing a greater reality, and we can do it. With right understanding and right aim, we can give up the life we have and have the miraculous one that is our birthright. It's a decision away. May God be with you on this journey. And now, this is the time in our gathering when we go within. We quit thinking about the divine presence and we just become one with it. We let nothing come between us and the divine source of all, God. So close your physical eyes and relax. Relax your mind and your body. You need not think. You need not move, not a muscle. Just relax. Relax your forehead, your mouth, your jaws, your neck, and your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your fingers. Let all the tension go. Relax your back. Relax your chest, your stomach, your legs, your feet, and your toes. Relax your whole body and just be here now. Relax your mind. Let your thoughts go. Let your feelings go. Just let yourself be aware of your oneness with all life, with God. Think for a moment about what you really want. Let yourself formulate it. Peace, joy, rest, relaxation, abundance, the relaxing of tension between you and another. What is it that at your very core you want most? Now let your worry and concern about this go. Turn the situation over to God completely and absolutely. You don't need to find a solution. The solution is there. You need only be open to the answer. Ask and it will be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds. A person's crisis is God's opportunity. In a time of great need or emergency, you may find it difficult to remain calm and trustful if you're depending too heavily upon your own efforts to bring about a solution. Whatever the situation, whatever the need, recall these words. A person's crisis is God's opportunity. Where we leave off, God takes over. Doing what we have felt was impossible is easy and natural for God. There is no condition of body or mind or soul beyond the power of God to heal. All is in divine order. Jesus told his disciples, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Prayer is the greatest force in the world. Prayer is the open door to God. God is your help in every need. God is instantly accessible to you. In times of emergency, know that God is there and stay open to the answers. You commit this minute to make prayer an active habit in your daily life. Practice the presence of God so that you can recall and remember that God's help is always at hand. You need only get quiet and tune into it. The answers are always there. Omniscience is one of the definitions of God, all-knowing. God has a healing for every need and a way to meet every situation. With God, all things are possible, and God has the perfect solution for your challenges. There is no emergency that God cannot handle perfectly. Now, for a moment, rest in the silence and open up to the answers that you seek. Dear God, I realize that peace of mind, heart, and life is not dependent upon outer circumstances and conditions. I come to you in this time of great need, knowing that you know how to handle the situation that so perplexes me. As I find myself struggling through this challenge, I turn to you and I rest and renew myself in your divine presence. I ask you to flow through every atom and cell of my being. I now actively release all thought of outer conditions, and I feel relaxed and at peace, knowing that you are working within this situation. From the depths of my being, in stillness and quietness and in confidence, I turn to you. My mind and body are filled with your peace and reassurance. I know that outer conditions will ultimately change. I know that you establish harmony and order. In faith, I sense a new feeling of contentment, serenity, and inner security. I know that my crisis is your opportunity to show me new ways of thinking, acting, and being. And I go through this week, and I will turn to you more often. I will turn myself over to you every morning, physically, emotionally, and mentally, and spiritually. I will walk the talk. I will be the Christ consciousness, the golden Buddha within, because I know that this is who I really am. It's who we all are. And I know that in this way I will manifest the kingdom of heaven on earth. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven, from this moment forward. And I am so grateful for this wisdom and my newfound commitment to my higher good and the good of all those around me and everyone in the world. I am indeed grateful. The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, and you are safe and secure. The Lord watches between me and thee while we are absent one from the other, and helps us to know that we are all one in spirit through our Lord Jesus Christ. Let there be peace on earth, dear God, and let it begin with me this day. Amen.